Now we're joined by one of the many service providers that has participated in the expansion of broadband internet access in southwestern Indiana. Bill Swords, the Indiana State President for AT&T. Bill, thanks for being with us today. It's always great to see you.
Hi, Noah. Thanks for having me.
So first wanted to talk with you, Bill, about, I know AT&T has had a contract for expanding broadband in parts of Vanderburgh County, particularly the sparsely populated areas. I know we were talking beforehand. You said that is now completed. Can you walk through what that project really entailed and how did it come to fruition?
Sure. It was actually late in the year 2021. The county commissioners, were struggling, like so many rural counties, with broadband availability across Vanderburgh County. And it was right about the time that local governments across the country were getting ARPA dollars, right? And these dollars had to be used for infrastructure programs, sewer, water, bridges, broadband. And the county commissioners in Vanderburgh County said broadband is our most critical issue. They put out a request for proposals from the industry. And after some deliberation, AT&T was selected as the partner with Vanderburgh County. And so once we signed that contract, it was a $40 million deal. The county put in 10 million. AT&T matched it with 30 million. And the scope was to run fiber optics to every home, business, and farm in unincorporated Vanderburgh County. So it didn't address Hobstadt and it didn't address Evansville, but everybody else in the county. And it took us 2 years to do it. It was the largest fiber optic project in the state at the time. But through great partnership and great leadership with county leaders, it's a project that we completed in November of 2023. So I think it's out there making a difference.
Absolutely. And Bill, you mentioned the fiber optic lines. Is that what's being used to reach these rural areas? I know you just mentioned that. Could you explain what those really are for our viewers at home who might not be aware?
Sure. There's lots of different ways that people can get broadband in their home, Noah. Historically, it might be, through copper cables or from a cable company. Increasingly, fiber optics, which is glass. It's tiny threads of glass that send light beams in between electronics. I mean, that is fiber optics at its most simple. But the capacity and the speeds are far greater than previous copper or coax cable. And so, kind of the nirvana of broadband access is fiber. But today, you can get broadband through a satellite company, through a wireless company, through a fiber company, or a cable company. There are lots of ways, but fiber seems to be right now the best solution out there. But there are other ways people get broadband access.
And I know you mentioned that project, particularly in Vanderburgh County, was completed at the end of 2023. Curious though, Bill, if there's any other service areas in southwestern Indiana that AT&T is working on, and what about elsewhere across the state?
Yeah, good question. There's never been more broadband being deployed in America than there is today, and AT&T is very active in that. In fact, over the last 5 years, AT&T has invested $1.9 billion in the state of Indiana into our fiber and 5G networks. In fact, included in that number is nearly $190 million in the Evansville metro area. So think about, Posey, Vanderburgh, Warwick County, about $190 million. And that's just what we're doing. Yes, we did conclude that major project in the unincorporated counties of Vanderburgh County. But we're still building. We're still building in Warwick County. We're still building in portions of Evansville. The march goes on. And so getting people basic connection is one thing, but competition is a good thing too. And so we are continuing to invest both in fiber and in 5G. And I think you see that activity, hopefully, within all of southwestern Indiana.
Right, an important figure, and what talk about a very significant investment, right? Particularly in the Evansville metro. You said 190 million. I wanted to get your take too on the BEAD program. That's federal program. Is there additional money perhaps available in that area, and could you give a little bit more insight?
Sure, happy to. The BEAD program is going on right now, and it's actively a competitive bid. So I probably won't go into too many details about how we're participating, but the program at large is $868 million for the state of Indiana. And providers like AT&T are competing for these dollars right now to serve the remaining portions of Indiana. And what I mean by that is, according to the FCC, Noah, there's about 35,000 homes and farms in Indiana that don't have adequate broadband today. I mean, the good news in that story is that 93% of Hoosiers now have adequate broadband. The challenge there is there's still 35,000 of our colleagues and our neighbors that don't. And so this competitive process will choose providers with a small subsidy from the state to try to get to those remaining Hoosiers who still lack basic internet connectivity.
And what are, I know rural areas particularly, Bill, but what are there any other barriers to individuals having access to broadband? Is it really just the geographical location, or are there other barriers
Yeah,
there as
that's a
well?
great question. I mean, we try to think about it at least in three phases. Having access to the infrastructure is the most important thing. But frequently, we find Hoosiers that maybe don't have a device. I mean, we all carry mobile devices today, but a mobile device really isn't adequate for being able to learn online or work from home, or maybe further your career search. And so sometimes a device is a barrier. People need a laptop or a tablet. And then thirdly, it's an economic burden still for some. The cost of broadband, I think has stayed in check and really hasn't changed dramatically, although our speed requirements as individuals have changed. But for some people that might be more economically challenged, that can be a barrier to broadband adoption as well. And then I guess a fourth, Noah, just real quickly, is just basic digital literacy. Statistically, Indiana ranks in the bottom third of states in America with kind of technological savvy. People need to know basic internet usage. How do I get on and surf the web or check my email or build an online resume? I mean, for those of us that have been, fairly digitally native, it might seem like a foreign concept, but there's still thousands of Hoosiers that wouldn't know what to do with broadband once they do get it.
And that's such an interesting point. We always appreciate your expertise and insight, and thank you for coming on again. Bill Swords, the Indiana State President for AT&T. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Noah.